Hello, my name is Rin. Today I will be reading a story that I wrote called Screaming Echo. It is a BTS fanfiction, but I still hope you will enjoy. Jungkook's torchlight emanates from his cell phone as he and his best friend Jimin make their way down his street. "Why are we out here?" Jimin asked as they walked to the forest in front of Jungkook's neighborhood. "We agreed we'd look for the scream tonight," Jungkook said, pinching Jimin's arm at the thought of him bailing on him last minute. Jimin flinched and smacked Jungkook's bicep. "Fine, let's just go already." The two boys marched right up to the woods, the scene around them darker than the night sky. The massive trees loomed in front of them, the canopy looking down upon the two boys. Jimina, Jungkook approached his best friend as they gathered at their normal eating spot. "Wasso?" Jimin asked, watching as Jungkook placed his tray down. Jungkook's eyes darted left, then right. "Have you heard the screams from the woods?" Jimin looked around too, as his face lit up with an insatiable curiosity. "Appa has told me about them. It's creepy, dude. Your street is weird." Jungkook scoffed and got comfortable. "Nuna used to tell me scary stories about the shadow people that live in the woods. But a few years ago, these screams started. They sound the exact same every night. Like you looping that stupid song when I come over." Jimin snickered. "I can't help it. I like that song. And whatever is in the woods seems to like that scream, if what you say is true." Jungkook smacked the sandwich from Jimin's hands as soon as he was about to take a bite. Jimin hissed like a feral cat, grabbing it before it could hit the table and throwing Jungkook a glare. "What's wrong with you? This is my mom's famous sandwich, and I almost lost it," he said, looking at the sandwich with a longing stare. "Let's go look for it," Jungkook whispered. Jimin scrunched his eyebrows, chewing his recent bite of the sandwich. "But it's right here," he said, pointing to the sandwich. "Not your sandwich, Paboya. The scream." Jimin blew a raspberry. "Bet, don't pussy out on me." Jungkook crossed his arms. "Who's the one who cries and screams when we watch Child's Play?" Jimin scrunched his eyebrows and opened his mouth. "That shit is scary. Have you seen the way his tiny body runs after people? No way, bro." Jungkook chuckled and nodded. "I'll ask to stay at your place this weekend." Jimin nodded in return. "My parents told me Seokjin Hyung could come over this weekend since they'll be out of town, but he wants to be with his girlfriend, so I'll ask if you can come over instead." Jungkook laughed. "My parents should be cool with it too." Jimin nodded and stood up. "See you in gym." They scanned the woods with their flashlights, not necessarily knowing what to look for. Everything outside of their two lights was sloped in inky black darkness. They were barely 12 steps in when Jimin started to lose his nerve, mumbling about something before speaking coherently. "Appa said a girl went missing in here once. Maybe the screams are her, being tortured every night by the shadow people your Nuna told you about." Jungkook turned around, his light blinding Jimin. "Shut up," Jungkook hissed. Jungkook cut his scoldings short. A sharp inhale amongst the woods behind them that had their boot-clad feet frozen on the spot. They were both quiet, simultaneously spinning their lights in the direction of the sound. Nothing. Nothing was there. Jimin was the first to speak. "What the fuck was that?" he asked, fear prominent in the tremble that wiggled through his voice. Before Jungkook could process his thoughts, to answer with an "I have no clue," his eardrums were violently shredded by the most horrifying shrill scream he had ever heard. The inhale was quite a few feet away, but the scream sounded directly behind his head. They both jumped and covered their ears, spinning on their heels and tearing through the underbrush to get back out the way they came in. In reality, only about 10 seconds passed before they were back at the edge of the street. To them it felt like an hour of relentless running, getting smacked in the face with tree branches while shrubbery scraped their jeans. But they didn't stop at the edge of the street. They ran all the way to Jimin's house, barreling in the front door and slamming it shut behind them. They slowly climbed the stairs to Jimin's room, collapsing onto his floor. "Never again," he said, in between panting breaths, the back of his head pressed against his door, not even turning to make eye contact like he always does when he talks to Jungkook. Jungkook went quiet and looked at his knees that were inches from his face. For the next 4 years, they never talked about that scream. Jungkook wanted to bring it up to Jimin multiple times, but was too scared that if Jimin's curiosity wasn't as amped as his own, that he'd trigger Jimin into a mental breakdown. At this point, Jungkook was obsessed with those woods and that scream. The way it made his skin crawl and heart pound caused an infatuation to grow within himself, especially since he can't find anything that gives him an adrenaline rush more than those woods. Jungkook has done as much research into the history of those woods as much as his eyeballs could read. Jungkook once stumbled upon an article about the girl who went missing in those woods Jimin told him about. She was 17 when she went missing, after staggering into the woods during a drunken walk home from a friend's sweet 16. She didn't completely disappear though. She was found 42 hours after her initial missing report, but after falling into the rabbit holes of the internet, Jungkook found the rumors, stating that the police had to drag her out from under a decaying tree, covered in dirt and insects as she begged them, "Don't let it get me," asking, "Did you kill it?" and "Please, take me home." She moved out of the town months after and gave no one a hint as to what she went through or what she saw in the woods during those 42 hours. Jungkook often thought about whether he should have stayed in the woods that night. The thought made him upset that he didn't fight the urge to leave and wanted to feel the amazing adrenaline pumping through his veins again. Jungkook did go back eventually. This time, he went alone. He decided to camp out, heading into town during the evening he planned to leave. He was walking with headphones on, the woods across the street in front of him when he heard his name being called. He looked up to see Jimin walking in his direction, a big smile on his face. "Where are you headed, Jungkook?" Jungkook smiled softly. "Oh, just headed into town for a couple of things. What's up?" Jimin chuckled half-heartedly. "I told you and Jim that Namjoon Hyung was having a party tonight." Jungkook looked to the left. Some familiar faces were waiting for Jimin. "Oh, yeah, I forgot." Jimin chuckled and threw her arm around Jungkook's shoulders and forcefully pushed him towards the group of people. Having a drink with friends sounds way better than what he had planned for the weekend, so he went along with it and headed towards the party. Not to mention, Jungkook kind of had a man crush on Namjoon and heard he wasn't put off by him. When they arrived at the party, everyone was already drunk, Namjoon included. He walked over to them, wrapping his arms around their shoulders. "What's up, fuckers?" he said, squeezing them a bit before pulling away and handing them a beer each. Jimin and Jungkook stood in Namjoon's kitchen, going from awkward small talk to tipsy reminiscing to full-blown drunken blabbering. Jimin and Jungkook wandered around the house before finding Namjoon and their Hyung sitting around the living room. Jimin found a spot on the floor that happened to be beside Yoongi, while Jungkook slept down next to Namjoon. He was glad the liquid courage flowing through his veins gave him the guts to talk and flirt with Namjoon. Otherwise, he would have run away from this situation as fast as he could. That's when he felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. His mom was calling. He looked at the time and realized he never told his mom he was going out. Now it was past midnight. Jungkook rushed out of the door, not giving anyone even a simple goodbye before stumbling down the street. In his drunken state, he had to stop a few times and press his back against a street lamp, praying for the spinning to quit. He made it home, holding his phone in his hand, the flashlight on as he fumbled with his keys when he realized where he was and remembered what he planned to do this weekend. That's when he made the split decision to stumble across the road, coming to the edge of the woods, his dim flashlight even dimmer as he held it up towards the trees. The liquid courage made him calmer and slightly more excited than he would have been before getting drunk. He didn't even stop walking, his body piercing the tree line. What felt like 30 seconds passed, and Jungkook was further into the woods than he had got with Jimin. He tripped over branches and ran smack into trees, but he pressed on. "Annyeong? Is anyone there?" he shouted. "I'm here to hear your screaming. Am I too late? Please, Come out and let me see you." He found himself slurring in a yell. Nothing but the shuffling of animals scurrying in the foliage and bird calls from the canopy filled the air. He felt his world tilt as he slumped to the side and sat against a tree. He looked down and around, his dim flashlight emanating off his phone, barely giving him a dull view into the woods around him. His blurred vision cleared slightly as he started noticing the darkness around him fading in and out. He was falling asleep. He woke up to a loud crack above his head. He listened carefully as he looked at his flashlight, which now lay on the ground beside him. He heard the loud cracking noise again, the sound resonating in his ears, sounding like multiple people walking through the forest. In a slightly more sober state than before, Jungkook looked around, desperately trying to pinpoint the place where he entered the forest. He soon gave up trying to look for it and blindly ran in one direction. Before his foot could pound the ground during his fourth step, an ear-splitting sound reverberated in his eardrums. The scream was back, and this time it was on Jungkook's tail. He ran for a few minutes before his path was blocked by something. A tree or log, maybe? He didn't stop long enough to look thoroughly, only turning and continuing to sprint until he was stopped by another tree or log, blocking his path. He turned in every direction, besides the one where the scream came from, and came to a horrifying realization that made him almost physically sick. Whatever was stopping him wasn't a part of the woods. They were tall, pale silhouettes of humanoids, blocking his every exit. They moved towards him, but their legs didn't move. They did something more like gliding. His memory brought back the stories of what his Nuna told him, but this wasn't like that. These were much, much worse. Pale beings, skinny like trees, coming closer with every second as every option of freedom grew non-existent. Jungkook fell to his knees, becoming surrounded by the horde of creatures. He closed his eyes and did the only thing he could think of. He screamed. A scream of pure adrenaline, fear, an animalistic sound. When his throat became sore, he stopped, hesitantly opening his eyes to find the beings gone. Thinking he scared them away, he relaxed, but realized he didn't scare them away. He only alerted whatever was truly there to his location. In the darkness, his eyes settled on the only movement. Far away, enough to give him time to run, was a humanoid shape, approaching. It didn't move like the strange floating pale masses. It walked like its knee joints didn't connect or hold up its body like it should. It limped in the dim light Jungkook's phone was still providing. Its arms were stiff by its sides, and its bones cracked with every movement it made. Its jaw hung loose from its mouth and let out a distant moan. Not a moan anyone could replicate. Something otherworldly. Jungkook was no longer a drunken kid in the woods. He was prey. Jungkook turned his back on the creature just as it got close enough to almost reveal all of its form. This was no longer a mystery to unravel. It was life or death. He tripped on roots and fell over bushes as he ran as far and as fast as he could. He saw a flicker of streetlights through the trees and got a burst of energy like no other. He neared the edge of the forest. A few steps away, he saw Jimin stumbling home with Yoongi propping him up. A scream left Jungkook's mouth, catching the attention of the boys. They turned in his direction, but before Jungkook could reach the road, he felt a strange, long, and hard appendage wrap around his waist. He looked down before looking back up, fear in the eyes that locked on Jimin, before he was yanked backwards into the forest. The scream still resonating in Yoongi and Jimin's memory. Well, I hope you enjoyed my story. I normally don't write scary stories, so this was a first for me. I hope you really liked it. Let me know in the comment section below and give me a little like. And possibly press that subscribe button. Thank you for joining me today.